We're live, three-man booth, week 13, NFL. Joel, Adam, how you boys doing?
I'm good, man. It's a little bit early on a Sunday morning for me personally. Usually I'm like kind of rolling out of bed because I'm definitely a night owl, but it's a good time to be on live and talking some football.
Absolutely. And Joel, this might be our first show together. How you doing, bro?
I'm good. I'm excited. I think this is a really good DFS slate. There's clear value, there's clear pay up spots. I'm pumped.
Let's go. So we'll just dive right into it. First game on the slate is a very juicy one. Really, I could start with any of the 1 o'clock games. I can actually say 1 o'clock games now that Sticks is not here. Usually I call them noon and 3 games because Chicago time zone is rooted for over the Eastern time zone when it's Sticks tonight. But he's off this week, so we're flipping back to Eastern time zone. 1 o'clock games, very juicy one between the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions. Minnesota coming in as 7-point favorites despite no Dalvin Cook, with a total of 46.5. So definitely not the tops of the slate, but not the bottom of the barrel either. We know Alexander Mattison, despite being priced up on both FanDuel and DraftKings, they did that without even having concrete news on Dalvin Cook being in or out. And then obviously when he was ruled out, it kind of ruled in their favor there, having him already priced up as one of the highest running backs on the slate. But he's definitely in a good spot. We got Justin Jefferson ready to smash here. You could stack him with Kirk Cousins as well. Josh Reynolds being one of the main values on the flip side for the Lions, who are also playing without DeAndre Swift getting hurt in that Thanksgiving game, of course. So I'll kick it off to Adam first. Anything that you like in this one in particular?
Yeah, man. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head with the players we're looking at. And I have to give both DFS sites a lot of credit because they did price up Madison. Like, it turned into, usually when Dalvin Cook's out, Madison's like 5,500. And, like, you have to play him in every single lineup. Like, no matter if you like him or not, whatever, 5,500 Madison is just a smash. So I don't think at this price necessarily keeps the field away per se. Like, he's already played the Lions once this year. He dropped 30 DK when Cook was out. So like, he can get it done. Anytime Cook is out, he's strong play. I do still prefer some of the other top-end backs to him. But if you show me a lineup with Alexander Mattison in it, I'm not going to fight you whatsoever.
Joel, anything in particular sticking out in this one?
Yeah, I'm with you on Madison. I mean, he already showed against this team that he can break the slate. So, I mean, the price it's obviously more attractive in the 5K range, but he can get there. I really like Jamal Williams today. I think when he gets a full workload, especially a team that likes to throw to their backs who doesn't have established receivers, I think he has a pretty high floor. So for cash and for GPP, I think Jamal Williams is probably my favorite play of this game. And playing him with someone on the other side, is totally fine. I think one of those Vikings guys is going to have a big game. It's hard to pick which one because, there's a lot of big playmakers there, but I think one of them will get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, Jamal Williams is certainly interesting on DraftKings at least. And I know it's not it's by far not the sexiest play on the slate, anything like that. We're never fired up to say, oh, yes, I get to play Jamal Williams now, right? So, but with that being said, now that we're getting news on Darrell Henderson, who is trending towards being out for the LA Rams, a lot of people are just going to go down $1,000 cheaper to Sony Michel, and rightfully so, right? I'm not here to argue against that. It's definitely worthy of consideration, especially for our cash games. It's going to be Sony Michel over Jamal Williams. But with that being said, Jamal Williams there at 5,400 in a Lions offense that cannot stretch the field whatsoever. I mean, you look at that Thanksgiving game, and that was just one game where the reason why I'm using that one is because not only it was last week, but because a lot of people ended up watching that one with it being the holiday. DeAndre Swift had 4 receptions on the very first drive for the Detroit Lions, right? So Goff is not stretching the field at all. He's not using TJ Hawkinson the way that all of us would like him to be using. I would love to see Hawkinson getting absolutely peppered with targets, similarly the way that Deontay Johnson does in Pittsburgh. Like something like that where we get 15 targets per week for TJ Hawkinson would be great. Truth be told, that's not the situation where Jared Goff is constantly just checking it down and dumping it off. So is the upside capped because of the fact that they're likely going to be having a ton of short possessions? Yeah, absolutely. But the floor is as safe as anyone on this slate because there's barely anyone behind him outside of Jefferson. And realistically, he's going to get both the bulk of the carries and majority of the targets here too. So at 5,400, I definitely don't mind him. And that's exactly what he made a living on in Green Bay, coming in as that third down back. Similarly, what we've seen with guys like Gio Bernard do in their career. now you're getting him some carries on top of that. The floor is really safe. I love Alexander Mattison today, just because I kind of find him priced in not necessarily no man's land, but the fact that you can go up to Mixon for a couple $100 more, or people are going all the way up to Jonathan Taylor. I feel like people are going to be rostering Alexander Mattison at a lower rate than they should be today. So at 7,600 on DK, he's one of my main backs that I used for tournaments. And as much as I love Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins in this game, I just don't believe in the fact that Detroit can keep pace. So I'm pretty much sticking it with Alexander Mattison, Jamal Williams. If taking Josh Reynolds on a flyer, that's okay. All the other guys that we mentioned, but for me, primarily the main plays are the running backs in this game.
Yeah, and goes real quick before we move off here. We always say in NBA, people flock to the new news, and you don't have that phenomenon as much in NFL because you actually have legitimate injury reports and 90 minutes before the game if somebody's active or not, unlike the NBA. But just looking already this morning, Michelle's now the second highest rostered back on projections wise, and Jamal Williams is under 15%. Well, that was completely reversed 2 hours ago. Nothing changed for Jamal Williams. Like, he's still in the same exact spot. He's still the same floor. He still has a potential ceiling. Nothing changed, but and I get it. Everyone wants to save the money and run to Michelle, but now, especially in GPP, like, Jamal Williams becomes that much more interesting because so much of the field flocked away from him.
Well, that's exactly it, right? And when you're looking at it, you end up saying, okay, if you were building your cash lineup a couple hours ago or last night or Friday, whenever it was, when we didn't have news on Darrell Henderson, and your last guy in was Jamal Williams, you weren't exactly thrilled about it, but it's not like you were disappointed either. No. It's not like you were disappointed either because of the sheer volume that he's going to have. Now that Sony Michel ends up being the chalk of all chalk, people are running to it. I understand that, but exactly like the way that you said, the situation has not changed for Jamal Williams in Detroit. If you were happy playing Jamal Williams and you're higher on him than your buddies beside you to your left and to your right, keep playing Jamal Williams. His situation has not changed whatsoever. Don't force a pivot in your lineup when it's simply not warranted outside of cash games, in my opinion. But the rest of these 1 p.m. games, there are a couple of good ones, but this next one's pretty ugly. We got the Arizona Cardinals visiting the Chicago Bears. AZ coming in at 7.5-point favorites with a very low total of 42. Both Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins expected to be back for Cliff Kingsbury and company. Anything that you guys like in this game outside of James Conner? Are you really getting exposure to this one at all?
I like Hopkins in the GPP. I think, just the sheer fact of what his upside is at this price. I don't think it's safe. I wouldn't play him in the cash lineups, but if you want to take a shot at a big tournament, at the price at Hopkins, he can score twice and get 100 yards. So for a GPP perspective, I think you could take a shot there.
Yeah, I mean, when do you ever get DeAndre Hopkins at 6,200, right? I know he hasn't played for months, and you hit the nail on the head. Like, I'm not touching him in cash. It's terrifying in cash. But for GPP, man, you're never getting Nuke Hopkins at 6,200. I know he's had kind of a down year and everything, but 2 touchdowns, 80 yards, you're going to be happy at 6,200.
I don't think he's been 6,200 on DK since his rookie season. So usually he's flirting around 8,000 to 8,500. Yeah. Second or third, maybe fourth highest price wide receiver on any given slate, no matter what his matchup is. So getting him at 6,200 at ridiculous rostership numbers this morning, no one's playing him. We get the fact that it's definitely a scary one to be able to roster him in, but the upside's huge for a guy like that. So that's pretty much the only guy that I would flirt with in this game, and that would be mainly in large field contests. I wouldn't even get there in single entry, to be honest with you. That would be mostly
single entry.
Yeah, in MME, if you're not necessarily if you're running 150, but even if you're building 10 plus lineups, I would get at least one DeAndre Hopkins. Outside of that, this game is a full fade for me. The very next game, Tampa Bay visiting the Atlanta Falcons, the infamous 28-3 Tom Brady, back when he was with the Patriots, of course. Going to Atlanta as 11-point favorites here, total set at 51. Anything you guys like in this game?
I mean, the obvious thing, this seems like an obvious bounce back spot for Brady, right? After a game where Fournette went off, they couldn't ask for much of a better matchup with Atlanta. Everything on paper seems like you want to go on this Buccaneers passing offense. And there's plenty of options. I mean, it's almost good that you don't have Antonio Brown because the targets are more focused, right? Where I really like Godwin. That's going to be my guy, but I would totally be fine with Evans or Gronk, any of those guys tonight.
Yeah, I think the loss of AB is kind of really important because it's a little bit easier to stack with Brady now. Because when the offense is healthy, it can be a little tricky some weeks of picking that right guy, and it still can be to some extent. Like if you stacked him with Godwin or Evans last week and not Gronk, you were probably pretty unhappy at the end of the night. But you look at a guy like Gronk, and since he's come back with no AB, he's had 17 targets these past 2 weeks. Like that's a huge target.
Prime Gronk.
I mean, it is. It's literally prime Gronk. He's only 5,300. So while I do really like Godwin, and he would be my receiver, I think I have it ranked Godwin, Gronk really close together, and then a slight decrease to Evans. And Evans is one of those guys, like, I just never get right. Like, me and him do not get along. So if I don't roster him, he's probably going for 3 scores, and I hope he helps somebody. But he would probably be third on my list of who to stack Brady with.
Yeah, these individual matchups for Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are just absolutely absurd. Everyone knows we love picking on Atlanta's secondary throughout the past couple of years, and Mike Evans on the outside, that's a big boy to try and contain their one-on-one, let alone even with safety's help. So if Chris Godwin and Rob Gronkowski are both absolutely demolishing them through the middle of the field, it's going to be tough not to leave Mike Evans one-on-one on some possessions, and that is a recipe for disaster. So Atlanta's going to be scrambling, trying to figure out how to not only cover the middle of the field here, considering their safeties are far from elite, let alone the fact that now you got a 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". I've seen a bunch of different height measurements. Regardless, Mike Evans is absolutely massive, 230-plus pounds, one-on-one on the outside. That's a recipe for disaster for them. So I do think he gets in the box once today, but even without Antonio Brown, it's tough to stack this team. And you have to go one Godwin, Evans, one Evans, Gronk, Godwin, Gronk. Maybe you get a QB running back with Fournette stack in there as well with one of Gronk, Godwin, or Evans. It's definitely tough to end up stacking this team. And for me, the lack of run back options outside of Cordarrelle Patterson on the flip side, who, you know what, with the amount of running backs that I have in my player pool right now, I can't get to Cordarrelle Patterson. It's not that I don't like him. It's just that he's the odd man out, man. There are so many good running backs that we're going to talk about in a couple of games coming up. And for me, the lack of run back options from this Atlanta team, it worries me about the back and forth. I get the really high total, but I do think that Tampa Bay can absolutely pour it on. If I am stacking this one, it's going to be one option. I'm going to try and just try and get the top wide receiver option correct. I'm going to do one Brady Evans, one Brady Godwin, chase that upside. And that's about it. I'm not really running it back or anything like that. I'm keeping it simple. I'm going Brady with one of the wideouts in 2 lineups. And that's about it for me in this one. The next game, on the other hand,
real quick,
go ahead.
I think the only run back is Kyle Pitts. And I know like the production hasn't always been there. Man, the metrics just continue to stream. He's being used as a wide receiver. It hasn't worked every single week, but you look at this guy and he's just getting targeted so much. He's getting targeted downfield. He has everything we want metrics wise. It just needs to pop that one time. And he's only 5,600. That's the only run back option for me because you're right. Patterson's just way too pricey.
Yep. And on a slate with no Kelsey and no Waller, that can be absolutely huge where everybody's just punting down to Foster Moreau. But we'll get to that game in a little bit when we get to the 4 p.m. games. But Sia brings up a good point, Russell Gage. Any interest in Russell Gage in tournaments? We're definitely not going there in cash. We understand that. But any interest in tournaments as a run back option?
I get it. Probably not. That portion of wide receiver has guys like Higgins, Brandon Ayuk. It's still tough for me to give up one of those spots.
Yeah, I would agree. I would think
he is right.
Agreed. GPP, I mean, Gage, can score, and the price is right. Like, he doesn't need to have 150 yards. If he gets you 75 and a score, that will get you there. In a game, if you're going heavy on Brady, I think Gage can be a run back as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So before we get to Jonathan Taylor Chalk Week, we'll burn through a couple questions. Season-long needed defense. You got the Ravens, Cincy, Pitt, or Vegas. You guys have any favorites for this one?
The Steelers defense.
I was just about to say that would not be an option for me.
I would probably go Baltimore, man. I think that blitz heavy attack is going to give Pittsburgh some fits today.
So you have a preference?
Baltimore or Vegas? I think Vegas could get there against Taylor Heineke.
Yeah. So for me, I think the Vegas Washington game as I'm shooting out, and I'm not playing Cincy defense against Herbert, who's going to drop like 9 touchdowns today, and I'm not playing Pittsburgh's defense against Lamar Jackson because you just don't play any defense against Lamar Jackson. So
I'm not playing Pittsburgh's defense against a college team right now.
Yeah, that too. We'll get a couple more here. People talking about Jamal Williams. We got our first cash lineup here from Derek. Cousins, Michelle, JT, Godwin, Jefferson, Josh Reynolds, Foster Moreau, Gibson, and Miami D.
I would not run the Cousins Jefferson stack in cash. Not that they can't get there, but man, if it flops, you are in trouble because nobody's playing those guys. I think you either go up to Brady or come down to Carr or something.
Yeah, so for me, it would be going, if I'm stocking any quarterback and wide receiver in cash today, it's Herbert and Keenan Allen. Not only from a rostership perspective, just because the upside is absolutely massive. And it's a day ending in Y, so I'm playing Keenan Allen. And Sticks would be happy for that. But I'm going Herbert in cash. If you're not going Herbert, you do go Tom Brady. But because you have Godwin, you have your Brady exposure there. That's more than enough. Michelle and Taylor is likely the chalk combination with Antonio Gibson. Josh Reynolds in cash for me, man. I get the rostership and I get that he's going to be rostered enough in cash games to be able to be in play. But that for me is such a low floor. Like, it's to pair him with Foster Moreau in tournaments alone would be too big of a path to failure for me. But when we're talking about our cash games, when we prioritize safe floor over high ceiling, that for me is a little bit worrisome. So combine that with the fact that you have a $4,300 Sony Michel. I understand that Henderson's likely going to be out and it's a different spot compared to Josh Reynolds. But again, you pretty much have 3 punt plays in a cash lineup. That's a little scary for me there. So that's the one comment that I will make. We have one from Brian also. Herbert, Mixon, Eli Mitchell, Ayuk, Cooks, Godwin, Moreau, Gibson, or J. Will, and Giants defense.
I wouldn't worry about playing J. Will in cash at this point, and everything else looks good for me.
I don't love Cooks for a cash lineup. I think there's probably a little higher floor you can find at a similar price, but other than that, everything else in this lineup I like.
Yeah, so for me, it would be Gibson over J. Will. You absolutely have to play Antonio Gibson today. And as much as I don't like the double stack, Moreau's a free square, so it doesn't even count as a double stack for me. I'm going Hunter Renfrow over Brandon Cooks. Josh Jacobs is banged up. They're going to have to toss the ball a ton. No Darren Waller for Derek Carr, so I do like Hunter Renfrow over Brandon Cooks, but I'm cool with either one of those guys. We got one more from Jimmy's, actually was first. Herbert, Gibson, Mixon, Godwin, Ayuk. I love Brandon Ayuk today running the X. Wow. Keenan Allen, Moreau, Michelle, Giants. I don't see an issue with that. I think that looks really good. We got glides too. Herbert, JT, Michelle, Godwin, Deontay, Ayuk, Moreau, Gibson, Lions D.
Deontay's probably the only one that I would push back a little bit. I know he generally has one of the safer floors. If you love it, don't change it. I really worry about how Pittsburgh handles the blitz from Baltimore today. That offensive line scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah, we might be looking at many more screens than what we usually do from Pittsburgh's offense. But this next game, the chalk of all chalk, Jonathan Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts visiting the Houston Texans as 10.5-point favorites. Total sitting at 45.5 right now, with the majority of the points, at least Vegas thinks, is going to be coming from the Indy side of the football. We'll just keep it very simple for this one. Are you playing anybody outside Jonathan Taylor?
I mean, you can play Michael Pittman if you want. For years, this was the T.Y. Hilton smash spot. It's probably not the case anymore. But I mean, everything's gonna be focused on Taylor, and rightfully so. GPP, MME formats, if you want to take a shot at Pittman, Hilton, that's totally fine. Maybe a Jack Doyle, I could sign off on that, but nothing that's like I'm really forcing into the lineups by any stretch.
Joel, anyone else you're playing outside Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman?
I'm playing a lot of Jonathan Taylor. How can you not? This seems like such an obvious spot for him. I agree. You can play Pittman as well, but I probably don't want anyone on the Texan side. Maybe if you wanted to throw a GPP Hail Mary at one of the pass catchers, I'd be okay with it. But for the most part, it's pretty heavy on Taylor.
Yeah. So the
So
one thing I will go ahead. Adam.
In cash games, are you guys going? Because you really can only play one. Are you going JT or Cooper Kupp?
JT by a lot.
Ghost.
I'm going Kupp. Because there are many.
I've been fighting with it all morning, man.
There are so many elite running backs on this slate that
that's kind of where I'm at.
As crazy as it sounds, I don't feel the need to have Jonathan Taylor. And that's what I was going to end this game with. I was just going to drop that bomb on everybody. That
go for it. Yeah, go for it.
This is the most obvious spot for anybody, right? Like, we could spend the next hour and a half talking about how Jonathan Taylor is going to rumble for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Water is wet, grass is green. Jonathan Taylor is going to do well today, right? But at the same time, like, my lineup construction as is, I don't want to punt with a Josh Reynolds everywhere. I don't want to punt with wide receivers everywhere. There are so many good mid-range wideouts that when it comes to guys like Hunter Renfrow and Brandon Ayuk running the X, you're going to hear me say that 10 times for the rest of the show because he's in an absolute smash spot at 5,600 and 5,800 on DK. Godwin's at 66. Deontay Johnson's at 68. Keenan Allen at 75. I don't have to worry about fading a ton of those guys because I can get two of them with Cooper Kupp. But I can't do that with Jonathan Taylor because I'm less comfortable fading one of these 6K running backs. I don't want to fade an Antonio Gibson. I don't want to fade an Eli Mitchell. And then after those two guys for me are locks today. I'm 100% playing Antonio Gibson and Eli Mitchell in my RB1, RB2 spot. Those are the first two names that I clicked. And then outside of that, like now I want to play this is a slate where I am playing 3 running backs. The running back position is absolutely loaded. If you need the savings, you need the savings. You want to go Sony, go for it. You want to go up a little bit to Jamal Williams to get different in tournaments, go for it. You have Alexander Madison. You have Joe Mixon. There's so many other running backs that are in just as good of spots as Jonathan Taylor.
When I opened up the slate on Monday, to start writing, the first thing I messaged our Discord was, holy running back week. And I just started listing them off. I'm like, this is insane. I need like 6-7 spots just for running backs this week because it's really difficult to choose. It really is. That's
the thing, right? And when you're looking there, okay, let's say, for example, we take, like, just to put it in an example form, would you take a $9,200, because we can't just say $9,200 Jonathan Taylor versus $9,000 Cooper Kupp on DraftKings. Because to me, the decision that I made wasn't based on JT versus Kupp. I do think JT outscores Kupp. But what I'm saying is that I will take Eli Mitchell over any one of those 6K wide receivers. I will take Antonio Gibson over any one of those 5.6, 5.7, 5.8K wide receivers. Right? So that for me was that if all I need Kupp to do, which he's been the wide receiver one in all fantasy football, and now Stafford's going to have to chuck the ball because Sony Michel is Sony Michel. I'll leave it at that. Stafford's going to have to throw the ball a ton. Whether they're playing Jacksonville or whether they're playing a D3 college football team, Stafford's going to have to throw the ball a ton today because I get it. Sony Michel's
month. Like, if they can get that offense humming, I don't think they're going to put the foot off the gas pedal till really, really late.
McVay's going to want to absolutely head into the playoffs with the offense running on a clinic.
Right.
He wants Stafford throwing the ball, and it would not surprise me in the least today to see Matt Stafford throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns.
No, not in a bit.
Because you take away their RB1, you think McVay just wants to go 3-0 with Sony Michel because they're up by 17 at half? No. McVay's going to run it up. They'll win by 42 if they have to. They have a couple weeks left till they head into the NFC playoffs. They have massive playoff implications in these last few weeks. They need this offense.
And they got to get things right. They have to get things right. Involved. They have to get things figured out, or they're going to be one and done.
Right. So that's where, for me, Cooper Kupp double-digit targets, possibly even double-digit catches. Take Robert Woods out of the equation, who unfortunately I was absolutely devastated when he went down for the year with his knee injury. Man, like they have to get OBJ going as well. Why else would you bring him in? If you're not going to get him going before the playoffs, you're going to make OBJ go 2 for 20 in the NFC playoffs? They got to get him going also. So like that for me was the decision where it's worth a mention. That's the only thing that I want to say about this game and Jonathan Taylor is that there's that. And also, I did want to mention it on Styx's behalf. For those that haven't read it, shame on you. Go and read his article right now, in addition to Adams and everybody else's. I think we have like 15 NFL articles up there by now for this week, just like every other week. But he did mention a possible Nico Collins week as well. Houston's going to be chasing points all game long. You could pick on Rock Ya-Sin. You could pick on Xavier Rhodes all day long, one-on-one. And when you're looking for that for me as a play would be the exclusive pivot to Josh Reynolds, who is surprisingly ridiculously chalky right now. So that's where, am I forcing Nico Collins into my lineups? No. But if you need a punt to get all these players that we've been talking about, where you can possibly even get Jonathan Taylor with a ton of elite wide receivers, and your main punts are, or you want to get off Foster Moreau chalk, for example, any one of the possible scenarios where you need a $3,100 wide receiver, Nico Collins is definitely a possibility over Josh Reynolds. Just again, realize that the floor is very low there, and that's something that we always preach, is that you do have to approach with caution there, right? So Nico Collins, Brandon Cooks, they're going to be in for a ton of targets. Will that result in production? We just don't know about that one, which is why I'm staring. But it's debatable, which is why I'm staying away from this game all in all. But the next one, we have Minshew Mania taken stride in week 13. The Philadelphia Eagles visiting the New York Jets. 5.5 favorites for Philly on the road with a total of 44. I'll just start off right away by saying, are you guys playing any Gardner Minshew at the stone cold minimum on DraftKings?
Yes. Not going to do it in cash, but I mean, GPP, why not, right? I mean, 4K, you don't get a quarterback that often. I don't think Gardner Minshew is anything special, but I think he's competent. I think he's probably a higher end backup in the league. And I fully expect Philly to run the ball as much as they can, but they are without Jordan Howard. Boston Scott is leaning towards playing, but he's been questionable all week. He's been sick. Jalen Hurts, obviously, is a big effect on their run game. So I'm going to play some Gardner Minshew, but it's Miles Sanders week part 2, and this time it's actually going to work.
That scares me.
It scares me.
I don't blame you.
I cut ties with Miles Sanders so long ago.
Listen, I get last week was
you're pulling me back in now.
He only had 9 carries. I know he was banged up a little bit. I get that, but my God, man, he was ripping off 7 yards a carry. Just give the man the football.
He always does.
You don't need to reinvent the damn wheel here. And by the way, Jalen Hurts was playing horrible football last week.
Yeah, he had a really rough game.
Not ride Miles Sanders.
And you don't
have Howard.
Against the Jets,
Scott's banged up. The Jets have one of the worst run defenses in the league. His price didn't move. Nobody's going to want to play him after last week because he burned everybody again. I don't know, man. I'm going to play a little bit of both. They're not going to be main components necessarily because there's another 5,500 back that I really like later. But I will have some Miles Sanders, and I will have some Gardner Minshew with a Devontae Smith stack.
Yeah, I think the Sanders play is fair especially for a GPP. He's scary for cash because he could get hurt.
No, don't touch him in cash. Don't touch him.
But yeah, I think that definitely makes sense.
I have trouble not rostering 7 running backs in cash, let alone thinking about playing Miles Sanders. So.
Miles Sanders isn't there.
Yeah.
I actually love Gardner Minshew today. I'm gonna be hammering it. I think what sometimes gets overlooked is how much of a salary savings this is. Like he doesn't need to have a big deal. This is a huge amount of savings. And if you want to look back at quarterbacks against the Jets. Joe Flacco went out and threw for 270 and 2 touchdowns. So if you want to compare how can a backup quarterback, I mean, we saw it already this year with other not so good offenses and backup quarterbacks. Like this team isn't a good team. So you get a guy like if he was coming in to play the Rams, maybe not. But this Jets team is going to get beat no matter who they play. And I think this is just a really good spot for him. So at the 4K price, you can do so much with your lineup. Heck, if you wanted to play Taylor and Kupp, you probably could. So that's where I'm going to say you can play Minshew for sure.
I like it. Minshew Mania. I was going to get to one of my favorite games on the slate, actually my favorite game on the slate, but we are going to go with a snoozer instead because I want to talk about that game longer. So Giants versus Dolphins. Are we just skipping that one altogether?
No, I'm glad you brought that one up next. It's actually good timing. So for me, right now that we're not the only ones seeing the Gardner Minshew price and everyone going like, "Oh, this is a great way." So for me, a good way to be different, especially if you want to try and go after this MME and you're only playing 10 lineups, go for Glennon. I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out, right? Everyone else is going to be playing Minshew. You're still getting the minimum price quarterback. And this Dolphins defense, while they maybe looked a little bit better recently against some questionable pass offenses, they've been bad this year. For the most part, they have not been a good pass defense. And you don't, again, this is another scenario. Glennon doesn't need to have 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. If he gets you 220 and 2, that's more than enough value in this spot, whereas way low ownership when no one else is on him because everyone's looking at Minshew in this spot.
That is not necessarily a play for me. I definitely get the theory. I just don't trust anything on the Giants really at this point. It looks like, I don't really like this, but it looks like Devontae Parker is kind of getting some attention at 3,900. He's fresh off the IR. I mean, he's been fine when he's played and everything. I don't like playing guys right off the IR like that. But DK, 3,900, people are starting to kind of flock towards him. It's like him or Reynolds is the punt choice for a wide receiver. I mean, Waddle's still in play for me. I don't think Parker coming back like completely ruins his target share. He's really starting to find his groove in the NFL. Tua is still really, really cheap. I know some people don't necessarily like him, but 5,500 for a QB that's completing 70% of his passes, you could do worse.
This game's
nobody.
I'm not playing anybody from this game. This game is gross. This game is really so gross. I'm not forcing anything from this game.
And I'm not either. It's really just kind of the Dolphins defense, especially in cash, because they're the highest roster defense projected wise. But there's not a lot from that game to love. There really isn't.
Yeah, that game's completely off my board altogether. I'm playing Dolphins D everywhere. That's about it. But this next game, though, is going to be my favorite one, and it will ride or die my lineups. So we have the LA Chargers taking on the Cincinnati Bengals on the road. LA is actually not favored in this game. They are 3-point underdogs, but the total sits at 49. Who's not in play in this game? Is there anybody that we are not playing in this game?
The backup running back for the Chargers.
Okay.
That might be about it.
Here we go. So I'll actually take this one because I absolutely love this game. It's my favorite one of the day. So Justin Herbert will set the slate on fire. He's my main quarterback everywhere, and I am paying him, pairing him. I'm pairing him with Keenan Allen everywhere because it's the day ending in Y. And Keenan Allen's targets have been, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, through the roof for the last 5 to 6 weeks. So I will be playing Keenan Allen everywhere. I know that Sticks is also, and I know that you guys love Keenan Allen as well. Mike Williams can certainly stretch the field for them also. And if you're looking to get different with this game, I don't even want to say I don't hate it. I actually like stacking Eckler with this one too, because nobody's rostering Austin Eckler today, and you have the game that is going to shoot out. You want all the main playmakers on it. I can definitely get behind a Herbert, Eckler, and Keenan Allen stack to secure as much touchdown equity on the Chargers as I can, because they are going to be my main stack in my main build. On the flip side of things, Jamar Chase is in a great spot with Noah Asante-Samuel Jr. for the Chargers once again, and they're just struggling altogether on defense, which continues to be an extreme surprise to me because they have so many individual playmakers on this defense. They just can't string it together. So you have one of the worst, if not the worst, rush defenses in the LA Chargers. Joe Mixon can be your primary run back option to this one. Everybody knows what Joe Mixon is going to be able to do in this game. The yardage total is going to be huge. He has one of the highest yardage totals in all of the props for Vegas right now. And he also has one of the highest odds to score a touchdown on the slate as well. So we do like playing home running backs. Typically, we like to go with the ridiculous favorites, but home running back in Joe Mixon as a 3-point favorite going up against one of the worst, if not the worst, rush defenses in the league is extremely high on my list, and which comes back to, again, my main point as to why I don't necessarily feel bad about not playing Jonathan Taylor in some of my lineups today is because I do have a ton of Joe Mixon and Alexander Madison, which I am more than okay with. The wide receiver situation for Cincinnati continues to be sticky, but are you guys going there or are you just going Mixon?
I mean, for me, Mixon's the main reason I don't have Taylor in cash right now because I'm playing Joe Mixon. Because when you really look at it, what is the main difference between those two players? The workload's going to be about the same. Neither one is like, a massively involved guy in the passing game. They both are involved enough, but it's not like one of their main things. It's not like they're, an Eckler. And Mixon's now second in carries behind only Derrick Henry, who's been out for like a month and is still leading the NFL in carries, which is just absurd. But the workload's going to be there. It's just as good a matchup as Houston, and I'm getting it for $1,100 cheaper. That's really about the biggest reason I'm not jamming in Taylor everywhere is because I'm jamming in Joe Mixon. And one of my biggest regrets was not playing Joe Mixon everywhere last week, like I toyed with and eventually faded out of.
I'm with you. I think Mixon's a definite play today. It's just the game, the defense makes a lot of sense. Like we talk a lot about the funnel defense or where it's funnel to West. This defense is almost the opposite, right? They have good corners and they just can't stop the runs. You want to just target the ground game against them. So I love Mixon, but with Cincinnati, their secondary receivers, Higgins, Boyd are so underpriced that if you wanted to squeeze one of them in too, I'm totally fine. If this is the shootout game of the week, getting guys who can be pretty heavily targeted at the price that you get are especially for GPPs or something I like a lot. So I prefer the secondary receiving options and Mixon on the Cincinnati side. And then on the Chargers side, I'm a little concerned with ownership mainly. That's about it. I mean, I could definitely see this game going high, but if you're going to play a big tournament, maybe I'm going to probably look elsewhere, hoping this game maybe stays under.
I hope it sails over, but
I'm kind of with you. It's funny because last week I kind of said, I'm like, man, everyone plays Higgins every week and he hasn't really flashed that's, high upside. And of course, as soon as I say that, he goes for 26 DK. So he apparently reads game by game, I guess, which shout out to Higgins. I appreciate you.
I did play T. Higgins last week, and that was because I play him it's kind of like similar to what I do with DeJounte Murray in NBA. I have every single day, I have a lineup.
You have a Higgins lineup.
At least one. Of course, I have to. So this week I am playing him again, and it's not just my one lineup with T. Higgins. It's actually because I really like him in that mid-range of the wide receiver group. So the way that I continuously attack this Chargers defense, not only on the ground, but with route runners that are able to get behind the linebackers in front of the safeties. That is where, in the middle of the field, you can absolutely torch the LA Chargers. And it is none other than T. Higgins that has all of those routes in his route tree, while Jamar Chase continues to stretch the field for them on deep post routes and deep out routes. So I will be going back to T. Higgins today as my primary run back option with Herbert, Keenan Allen. And then if I am double stacking it, I'm actually not going Mike Williams. I'm going Austin Eckler and going full attack to be able to capture the most amount of touchdown upside. But this game is by far my favorite on the entire slate. Before we move on to the 4 p.m. games, we'll get to a couple of questions. So Eli Mitchell and Ayuk and Renfro Moreau, is that okay in cash, considering we don't always encourage stacking in cash?
Yeah, you touched on Renfro Moreau, which I'm totally fine with. And I'm still okay with Mitchell and Ayuk together. I mean, Deebo Samuel's such a large part of that offense. And I understand George Kittle's still there and everything, but Trey Sermon's on the IR, which he basically was anyways because Shanahan pretty much hated his life. But you look, and Mitchell's going to get almost all the running back touches, except for whatever targets, because JaMychal Hasty will probably take those. But Samuel was taking running back attempts lately. So Mitchell's got all of that, and then Ayuk's got all the passing routes, with the exception of Kittle, and then we'll talk about Juwan Jennings here in a little bit. But if you play both of those combos, I really think you're okay, even though generally we would steer you away from that.
All right, so there are a couple stocking combinations that I'm okay with today in cash. Forgive me if I forget one, but two of them are the ones that Brian just listed here in his question on the screen. So I am 100% okay with Eli Mitchell and Ayuk, as well as Renfro and Moreau, because Moreau doesn't really count for me in a stack because it's just a free square. So I'm okay with that. And a couple of quarterback wide receiver combinations I like are Brady and Godwin, of course, and to the surprise of absolutely no one, as I just talked about them for the last 10 minutes, I'm going Herbert with Keenan Allen. I'm okay with that stack as well.
No arguments.
For me, I'll just add with stacking guys on the same team, it's a lot different when they're both 6K or under because they don't need to have as high of an upside rate. If you want to stack a top guy on the slate, then you don't probably want another guy on his team. But when they're two middling priced guys, I think it's easier to do that stack.
I like it. We've got a cash lineup here with Herbert, Mixon, Madison, Cooks, Renfro, Ayuk, Moreau, Bateman, and Giants D. I would just say get Bateman out of there.
Yeah, no chance you can do Bateman and cash.
You have to have Antonio Gibson. That's the one guy that you have to have 3 running backs. One of them has to be Antonio Gibson today. So if you for some reason if you don't want to play him, just go with Sony Michel over Bateman in that case. Yeah. How do we feel about OBJ and cash? No. That's gonna be a hard no, Brian. Love you, but it's gonna be a hard
cash.
No.
I'm perfectly fine in GPP. Take that shot, but not If it's PPR, I'd probably go Higgins.
Full
Williams,
PPR. Full
Sanders.
PPR.
Full PPR. Higgins, Williams, Sanders, I think is how I would go.
I like Higgins and Williams as my 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Just because I want to play Sanders in DFS, that's more salary related than necessarily playing him over to some of these guys.
Yep. T. Higgins, days ending in Y. Tom Brady, Antonio Gibson, Sanders, Godwin, Cup, Renfro, Moreau, Michelle, Dolphins. Send it. I absolutely love that lineup. Y'all still going to lose the division. Bro, we're up by 3 games. The Eagles are not catching us. Enough. The ship has sailed. The ship has sailed, bro Beans. You are not catching us. And then he goes and asks a question, too, right after he talks about the Cowboys like that. Oh,
how dare you.
Kirk, JJ, Mike Will, Texans versus Stafford, Allen, Sanders, Giants. Mitchell.
I'd rather Stafford's side, I think. I don't want to play the Texans defense. I know that.
Yeah, I would go with the Stafford side, but I'm not. I don't want to say wasting, man, because it's Cordarrelle Patterson, but I can't spend a running back spot on Cordarrelle Patterson right now. That's the only thing.
Play Madison. Play almost anybody else at the running back spot, please.
He's actually, there you go. He already said he's going Stafford. Allen, beautiful. Bengals down 2 linemen. It doesn't really, since he's pass rush is far from elite right now. So, for me, it's just, the Chargers can't get pressure there the way that they should be with the individual playmakers. So they're already, the Bengals O-line has been surpassing everyone's expectations. Everybody was freaking out when they went Jamar Chase over Sewell. So they were already freaking out. They said, need an O-line to protect Burrow, etc. Right? And the Bengals O-line has been pretty stellar. So they're down 2 guys, but even the people that they have coming in right now, they are A-okay for me. Especially with the Chargers struggling in pass rush.
That's not a deal breaker for anybody on the Bengals.
No, especially when it's Joe Mixon. So, Clyde's got a GPP. Herbert, JT, Mixon, Mike Will, Cooks, Nico. You can't go Cooks with Nico.
Yeah, that's a little scary. And I mean, we'll get to it, but I'm not playing Moreau in GPP.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I refuse.
I am all in on George Kittle. We'll get to that game. Brady, Gibson, Mitchell, Godwin, Higgins, Parker, Gronk, Pitts, Dolphins. This is GPP. It's like you're playing 2 tight ends, but you're playing 0 because Gronk and Pitts don't really count.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, if you're doing double tight end, this is kind of the style you have to do it, right? Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I like it.
So for me, the only concern is that you're fading so many high upside wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if those tight ends don't hit, you're dead.
For me, it's that I've already expressed my love for T. Higgins on this slate and every single one of them. But what I'm saying is that I'm using T. Higgins primarily in a Charger stack. Right now, you have a $5,800 wide receiver one-off where you have Ayuk there, you have Renfro there, you have a little bit more expensive, you have Deontay Johnson, you have Godwin already in your lineup. But there are so many wide receivers there where I'm using, you have to stack that, right? So especially in a tournament. And I'm not playing Devontae Parker fresh off the IR. That scares. That I'll just leave it at that. That really scares me.
I'd rather play Reynolds, I think, honestly.
Yeah, at that point, I would punt down and go up from one of your tight ends. That's what I would do.
Yeah, you don't have to force the Pitts run back. Just because I said that was exactly like I prefer. Don't force it in there necessarily.
We have a FanDuel one as well. Carr, Gaskin. I'm not playing Myles Gaskin today. Gibson, Evans, Renfro, Higgins, Gronk, Mitchell, Dolphins D.
Yeah, I would prefer just about anybody but Gaskin at this point. And then I think we could probably find somebody better than Renfro on FanDuel. I typically prefer him on PPR sites.
Right. And the one thing that I will say about this lineup is that you have both Mike Evans and Gronk with no Tom Brady. Very bold. Very bold. So if you are keen on playing Gronk at the tight end position over the chalk Foster Moreau, I love the strategy. You cannot play Mike Evans there without Tom Brady. If you do want to play Mike Evans there, you absolutely have to get from Derek Carr to Tom Brady. We are moving on to the afternoon games. The first one is going to be an absolute shootout between the Washington football team and the Las Vegas Raiders. Washington on the road as a 1-point underdog, essentially a pick 'em in this one. A very high total of 47.5. No Darren Waller for the Raiders. We do know that Josh Jacobs is active, is banged up, but he is active, which is key for that Las Vegas offense. Antonio Gibson chalk week with McKissick. If anybody has confirmation on that, if he is actually officially ruled out with his concussion.
McKissick is out, yeah.
There we go. So I am playing Antonio Gibson everywhere as expected. We now get a true third down back in Antonio Gibson. So being able to get all three downs from Gibby is going to be huge. Usually McKissick ends up taking down not only the 2-minute drills, but he's taking a large majority of the passing work as well. Outside of the last 3 weeks where Gibson's, we started to see him get many more touches compared to the first half of the season. But this is an absolute smash spot against the Vegas defense. And on top of that, now that McKissick's out getting passing work, Patterson's likely still going to get a couple carries in that backfield for Washington. You're going to have to take him off the field. You're going to have to take Gibson off the field at one point. But that being said, this is the situation that any one of us could have asked for Antonio Gibson, is that you get a smash spot against the Vegas defense, and now you don't have to worry about whether he's getting the ball because J.D. McKissick's on the sideline. So that for me is the smash play in this one. We talked about Foster Moreau chalk a little bit, but I'll let you guys dive into some additional plays. Adam, I'll let you kick it off.
For me, and this is, don't hear what I'm not saying, this is GPP only. This is very, very dangerous. I'm going to have a lot of Desean Jackson this week. And I think he has a vintage performance. I think he looks like the D-Jacks of old. And honestly, what's happened with coming into the Raiders is when you look at what he's being asked to do, he's being asked to fill the Henry Ruggs role because that offense desperately needed a field stretcher. It didn't have one after Ruggs was off the team. D-Jack's been around for a while, but the dude can still fly. His ADOT is approaching 18 yards since he's been with the Raiders. His snaps are trending up. Derek Carr is finding a comfort level with him. He had 4 official targets last week, but let's not forget he drew multiple pass interference deep penalties. You're not getting points for that, but it's showing that he's being utilized in this offense, and that role that he's playing is extremely important, and it's extremely valuable for fantasy at 4,200 because if he breaks one touchdown, you're golden. And against this Washington secondary, he's got a really good shot at breaking a touchdown.
Yeah, and for those that were playing Devontae Parker, this is why I'm not playing Devontae Parker, is because if I'm in no man's land and I have roughly $4,000 left for my last wide receiver spot, I'm going to Desean Jackson because I'm not really comfortable with anybody down in that range. So I'm going to be chasing the highest upside. And for me, there's no one with upside at that price like Desean Jackson. Exactly the way that you explained it, Adam, is that the average depth of target is like over 18 yards. You know that when this guy is getting targeted, it's on a deep route. It's down the field. So that for me is what I want from a 4K wide receiver. I don't want a guy like Devontae Parker fresh off the IR. As much as I love Devontae Parker, I would take him on my team any day. It's just fresh off the IR like that. I want to chase upside in Desean Jackson. And they're going to have to throw the ball a ton in this one. Washington's offense has looked really good, right? So Heineke has this offense, running pretty efficiently, if I could say. So you have F1 on the other side, Terry McLaurin. You have Antonio Gibson as well. They have a ton of playmakers on the other side of the ball where Vegas can't just cruise in this one, man. Vegas they have it as a pick 'em, and the Raiders are going to have to absolutely put up some serious amount of points here. So I'm looking for Carr to throw the ball a ton, throw into the fact that now he has no Waller. It's going to be Renfro on these short to intermediate routes, and when Derek Carr is chucking the ball, I don't expect anybody else to be targeted outside Desean Jackson. That is huge, especially as a former Philadelphia Eagle. This is within that division, and anybody within that division, he absolutely torches, including my Cowboys, because that's just the way that Desean Jackson is. So I'm expecting a pretty big game for him. I'm not playing it anywhere else outside of large field tournaments, and single entry, I'm likely not even getting there. But for the tournaments where, you end up having a lower entry fee and there are a ton of more entrants in that one, you do have to get different. I do like Desean Jackson in that one. Joel, is there anything that you like in this game?
I'm with you. I think that's a definitely an interesting way to go in terms of upside. I liked maybe the Raiders backfield, but now that I liked it better almost without Jacobs. Right now that he's playing, it's almost like the split backfield. I'm probably going to have to shy away. So obviously, Moreau's chalk. But, the other person I think we haven't mentioned that maybe I would look to is Edwards, who you just know is going to be on the field a lot against a team that's not very good against the pass. So, as a pretty low price 3K range receiver, has the possibility of getting there.
Someone that I absolutely love for tournaments, who I am way over the field on, is Terry McLaurin as well.
That's a great run back.
I don't mind. I don't mind full stacking this game. I would be stacking the. You can honestly stack either side. I'm okay with it. Just again, I do like the Heineke, Gibson, McLaurin combination because I know exactly where the ball is going. Whereas with Vegas trusting Derek Carr, we don't know if Edwards is going to get I hate the goal line fades, but that's all he runs towards the end zone, right? So you don't know if it's going to go to Moreau. It could be a Josh Jacobs. It could be a Kenyon Drake touchdown for all we know, right? So I want the most amount of touchdown equity when I'm going with my quarterback, running back, wide receiver stacks. And to be able to do that, that's why I was going Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, and Keenan Allen, is because outside of the fact that I don't have Mike Williams, I'm pretty much guaranteed that every time the LA Chargers score a touchdown, that player is likely in my lineup. So same approach that I'm taking with Washington today is that I'm going Heineke with Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin. You're allowed to it allows you to get off the Foster Moreau chalk too, because you could run it back with Renfro or you could run it back with Desean Jackson. You get different at the tight end spot.
And a place, if I can't get to McLaurin, I will play Logan Thomas. That's another way to get off the Moreau
I like that
chalk.
too. Yeah.
He came back. He played, about 80% of the snaps last week, which, when he's healthy, he's playing almost every single snap. McKissick's out. It's only going to bump his targets up. He saw a 6 last week in his first game after missing like 6 weeks. He should have scored. 4K, he's too cheap as well.
I like it. I absolutely love this game. I think that you definitely need a piece of this one. A lot of the action for me is going to be in that LA Cincy game. But I do have a ton of exposure to these 4 p.m. games, primarily in the Washington-Vegas game. That's right there. So this next one, we got the Jags on the road to Sean McVay and the LA Rams, 14-point underdogs here. We know that Darrell Henderson is now out for the LA Rams. Total sits at 48. Are we playing anybody outside of possibly Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp's obviously in play and a chalk Sony Michel? Are we playing anything else in this game?
I think for GPP, you could take a flyer on Odell Beckham. My thought with him is that they just want to get him more integrated. So in a game that they could be up and they can get more opportunities to kind of get him in the offense more, this could be a good spot for that type of thing. But that's a GPP type of, thinking they're trying to game plan him into this game. other than that, I think you guys nailed it. Those are the main targets, and other than that, I probably won't be playing too much here.
The only other thing I want to add, again, just if you're looking at it off Moreau chalk, it's going to sound gross, but James O'Shaughnessy, same exact price. Jacksonville loves to use their tight ends in this offense. Dan Arnold hit the IR, and then Marvin Jones or Laviska Shenault will see Jalen Ramsey. And he moves around, so it's not like he's going to shadow anybody, but one of those guys is going to see Ramsey on just about every snap. I think O'Shaughnessy is kind of a good way to get off that Moreau chalk as well, especially in the GPPs.
Yeah, and the one and only thing that I will add to that is that, for people that say, "Oh, O'Shaughnessy, like how is I could just go Moreau," except like if you take your exact same lineup and all you do is flip O'Shaughnessy for Moreau, it doesn't matter if he puts up 1.5 points, as long as he outscores Moreau, you're likely ahead of thousands of people.
Yeah, you're
like you just need him to outscore Foster Moreau. That's all you need. It is a 1v1, and that's it, which is very possible, especially with Dan Arnold hitting the IR. So I absolutely love that call, Adam. For me, I will be. I'll just get this out there right away because I do see a question for Sony. Sony is a cash play for me today. The rostership is going to be through the roof, and rightfully so. Home running back, 14-point favorite. Darrell Henderson out. Checks all the boxes. I get it. In tournaments, I will not be going there.
That's kind of the same thing that I will be saying. It's the same theory as why I won't play Moreau, because I think there's legitimate paths to failure for Moreau at that ownership. I think there's legitimate paths for Sony Michel to flop at ownership as well. So, yeah, full lock in cash. I have no issues with that, and that's one of the main guys I'm building with. But for GPP, like, there's just so many running backs. Like, it's not hard to get away from.
I like this one. That pretty funny comment there from Rich PlayStation. But yeah, you can play him in cash. Absolutely, the rostership is going to be astronomical. But outside of that, I'm not playing him because I want to capture the most amount of points that I can from my Stafford stack. In that case, I'm going one stack. It's just Stafford Cup. That's it. I'm not getting cute with anybody else, although I do like the conversation that we've been having about OBJ and exactly what we were saying. Like they have to get this offense clicking, right? Like in the past couple of weeks, they have struggled mightily. They have to get it going. The playoffs are coming up in a couple of weeks here. Like Sean McVay has to get this boat turned in, steering in the right direction. It starts this week against the Jags, and I think they're going to do most of it through the air. As much as it would be nice for Sony Michel to go for 150-2, Sony Michel isn't going to be an impact player for them in the playoffs. It's going to be Stafford. It's going to be Kupp. It's going to be OBJ, Henderson when he's healthy. That's the way that you got to do it. This is actually an interesting question from Trent. Would you play Sony Michel and Cooper Kupp in your cash line?
Yeah, I would. And you talked about it before. 4,300 for Michel, you don't need much to pay off, and he's going to be chalk regardless. If both those guys can pay off their price at what they're salaried at.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
No problems there.
Next game, one of the best rivalries. We got the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. Total sits at 44 with the Ravens favored by 4. Adam, I'll let you kick this one off since I know you're a Steelers guy.
So if everyone doesn't like Miles Sanders, and it's fully understandable, play Devonta Freeman, because I think this game gets out of hand. I don't think the Steelers can stop the run. They've proven they can't stop the run. They can't stop anybody from scoring. They're allowing over 30 points per game in the recent weeks. And you look at these touches for Freeman, I understand he's not what he used to be. I'm not trying to say that. But 13, 10, 16, 16. There's a game he got 6 receptions. Now, that didn't come with Lamar Jackson, so that's probably a little bit out of whack. But you look before that, 3, 2, 1. He has the lead in the red zone carries between him and Latavius Murray. Pittsburgh's run defense is awful. Their middle linebackers are struggling mightily. TJ Watt just came back from COVID. Joe Hayden is out. Cam Hayward's expected to play, but he missed Friday practice. For a dude like Cam Hayward to miss practice, my man was sick. He just doesn't miss practices unless he's hurt. Like, he's one of the veteran leaders on this team. He can play, but I don't think he's going to be full go here. I have a really hard time seeing how this Steeler defense really steps up to the Baltimore offense. And when Baltimore's in control, they're going to be running the ball a ton. I think Freeman might get close to 20 touches. I think he finds the end zone at least once and goes for close to 20 DK.
Oh, what a call. I love that. That's going to be our clip it segment tomorrow. I love that. What a call. What a call. I don't know if I can add much to that. Joel? Anything? That was welcome to my TED Talk. Wow. That was nuts. I absolutely love that.
The main thing I'm totally aligned on is I think Baltimore is going to have their way. So I the upside of Lamar is just so high that I don't think he's looking very chalky. I think you can get him at relatively low ownership. And Lamar's the type of guy that in this type of game he could throw for 2 and run for 2 and just have another 40-point just blowout. So I actually like a Lamar a lot, and I actually think they've continued to underprice Hollywood Brown. They throw to him at least 10 times a game. He can get more than that today. 2 big plays, and he's well past value. So I will stack Lamar and Brown a good amount.
And if you want to run back again, a different tight end since week 6, Cooper Kupp has 13 red zone targets. Pat Freiermuth is tied for the NFL lead with 13 red zone targets since week 6.
That's our boy. He's absolutely killing it. Can you play Lamar naked, Brian? Yes.
Always.
I'm literally every single week. Doesn't matter what the matchup is.
Yep.
Got a quick question here for Cash. So this is the thing, right? So highest on good chalk for GPP. For my strategy for this is that I'm going Jonathan Taylor in cash, right? That's everybody's going to be playing Jonathan Taylor in cash. And for there, I'm not trying to finish first. I'm trying to finish right above the pay line. Doesn't matter. So because of the fact that everyone's rostering Jonathan Taylor, I have to roster Jonathan Taylor because if he goes for 203, you need him, right? So, and if he absolutely blows up in this spot where he does nothing at all, it doesn't matter because he's going to be rostered by 70+% of the field in cash. That being said, for GPPs, I am in love with all of these running backs that we've been talking about throughout the show. We're talking about Antonio Gibson and Eli Mitchell, for me, are my RB1, RB2 in GBP. And when you look at rostership projections, I get it. They're likely pretty high. People can only roster so many running backs on the same slate where everyone's having the same issue that we've been talking about, where we all want to play 7 running backs today. And right now, you have to think, are people really going to come off of Jonathan Taylor? Because right now, projecting as the highest rostered player on the entire slate, I don't think they will. So that's where they'll likely not go to Kupp, and they'll get their Rams exposure with Sony Michel, who also takes up a running back spot. And now, just the fact that you're going Jonathan Taylor and Sony Michel, because let's say, for example, those people don't want to punt wide receiver, they go JT and Michel. You can now only roster one of Antonio Gibson, Eli Mitchell, Joe Mixon, Alexander Madison. I could go on for the next 30 minutes about all the running backs that I like. All right, so that's why I am not just playing one. I'm not just playing multiple of those guys. I'm playing 3 of those guys. Because if everybody is playing JT and Michel, they can only play one of all those players I just named. So I don't want just 2 of them to get different. I want 3 of them. I want 3 of Gibson, Eli Mitchell, Alexander Madison, Joe Mixon, all these guys. Because that for me is you're getting different enough. And then you can play a Foster Moreau. You can play a Cooper Kupp. You can play other highly rostered players. Because just by simply not going with Jonathan Taylor or Michel, which is the cash combination that you absolutely need today, that's how I'm getting different today. So 3 running backs. Oh, this was for cash, right? So yeah, so that's what I was just alluding to before. That's the exact cash combination that you need. Exactly what you have on the screen there, Trent. You need Michel paired with Jonathan Taylor, and a cash line without Antonio Gibson is a big red flag for me today. So you absolutely need those 3 guys. Last game of the slate, we got the 49ers taking on the Seahawks on the road. 3-point favorites for Shanahan and company, coming into a total of 44.5. The Seahawks have looked god-awful in the past couple weeks. We got no Debo for the 49ers, which is absolutely huge for other players on this offense. I've already said how much I love Eli Mitchell. For me, it's just the fact that he was already getting 20-plus touches, and now Debo is not getting carries out of the backfield. So for me, they're going to absolutely pound the rock. And Eli Mitchell is going to be the primary benefactor of that. He's going to be running absolutely wild on the Seahawks. Everyone knows how much we love to play running backs against Seattle. And Brandon Ayuk playing the X spot as a wide receiver, again, with Deebo being out, he is going to be the 1A, 1B target for Jimmy Garoppolo alongside George Kittle, who is another player. I'll end it right here because I have absolutely zero interest in any Seattle player. I absolutely love George Kittle in tournaments exclusively this week. The main reason being that if everybody is playing Foster Moreau, and when they go up a little bit on the pricing grid, they are playing Rob Gronkowski, a slate with no Darren Waller or no Travis Kelce should automatically point you towards Mark Andrews and George Kittle. And the fact that everyone is still punting a position, like every single week I say this, every show, is that the spot to get different if you are worried about the aggregate rostership in your lineup, meaning that you have way too many chalky players, the spot to automatically get different every week is tight end. Because people lock in on 1 to 2 players and everyone else is sub 5% rostered. And getting George Kittle on a slate with no Travis Kelce and Darren Waller being ruled out with an injury is absolutely huge. Throw into the fact that now Deebo Samuel is now out for this offense. Jimmy needs to still throw the ball to somebody. This is still a tight game. Vegas has it as a 3-point spread, and Shanahan needs to keep this offense running. So for me, I'm not playing Jimmy G ever. I never play Jimmy G. Everyone knows that. But I have Eli Mitchell everywhere. And my favorite GBP tight end of the week is George Kittle. And I absolutely love a $5,600 Brandon Ayuk for both cash and tournaments running the X spot for Shanahan's offense this week. Is there anybody else that you guys want to talk about in this game?
I'm pretty aligned with you on that breakdown. I'm pretty high on George Kittle, especially for tournaments, especially thinking that those passes have to get funneled. And who better than your best pass catching tight end in the league, or top 3 at least? So with Samuel out, I think this is a huge spot for Kittle to have a bounce back game. And the same thing, right? There's just that usage from Samuel is 2 spots, right? There's running, there's carries, and there's reception. So I'm with you as well. So I think the 49ers are a team definitely to target. I definitely want to be playing some of these guys in my lineups. You know, who you want to pick and choose from is okay, but I'm definitely going to be playing a couple of these guys in most of my lineups.
Yeah, the only other person I'm going to bring up is Juwan Jennings, 3,100 on DK. His snaps have been kind of creeping up as the wide receiver 3 in this offense. So now he's pretty much expected to be the wide receiver 2. You know, he's topped out at 3 targets. It was last week. He was about an inch from scoring 2 touchdowns. And I think if that had happened, he'd be a lot more popular on this slate. As it is,
Absolutely.
Nobody's really looking at him. But, I mean, he's damn near the minimum. You don't need a ton.
I like it. I absolutely like it. We'll get through the questions, and then we'll go through our favorite plays to wrap up the show. You like Herbert, Allen, or Brady Godwin? Oh, man.
Yes.
Make one of each. Make one of each. For me, I'm riding or dying with Herbert and Allen, but like
play one of each.
Yeah, you got to play one of each. That's a great question, David. Does Derek Carr have any rostership for DK cash? No, you can't play Carr in cash. It's got to be Herbert or Tom Brady for me. How do you see getting different if you use Brady, Godwin, Patterson? Already using Patterson, you're being different, right? Because if we go back to the running back example that I was giving earlier, everybody is likely to pair Jonathan Taylor with Sony Michel, right? And then that leaves one spot open for that entire group. That I'll repeat again. It's Antonio Gibson, Joe Mixon, Alexander Mattison, Eli Mitchell. Like, you can only play one of those 5 guys. Cordell Patterson is not really in that conversation. If you're spending 2 running back spots on Jonathan Taylor and Sony Michel, your last spot is not going to Cordell Patterson. So that's already different enough, Julie. That's just by playing Patterson, you're already getting different. Trent, we talked about this for cash. That was good to go. DK, $2,700 left for defense. You guys have a preference there at 2,700?
27. Let me see here. I haven't been going down in that range, to be very honest.
I'm going up to it. David, if you don't mind posting your lineup, we'd really appreciate it. That way we can check to see if you get a pivot, because Miami's not all that much more expensive at 3,300. That needs to be
27. It's probably the Giants, because then you're getting like Seahawks. If you want to get real nuts, you could probably punt with the Bears.
Yeah.
I know Kyler Nuke is back, but they haven't played in a month, and that game's gross. It's low total. The weather's ugly.
I think you could also punt the Jets. You know, if they're playing a backup quarterback. I mean, I know I said I like Minshew, but if you're not playing Minshew and you want to take a shot on someone who can get a pick, there's another one you can try.
Mitchell, Kittle, okay together? Absolutely, bro beans.
Yep.
Absolutely. Are you guys playing Minshew in cash? Absolutely not. I'm only playing Justin Herbert or Tom Brady. That's it.
He is starting to creep up projected ownership, and I started to toy with some builds with him. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually do it, though. Yeah. It's really fun because I can play Taylor and Kupp and a lot of guys that I like, but I don't know if I have the fortitude to sit through a Minshew cash game spot.
Thank you for the kind words, Theo. It is greatly appreciated. We appreciate you tuning in. Mitchell and Ayuk, absolutely.
Yeah, Mitchell and any one pass catcher from San Francisco is going to be okay.
Yeah. Can you play Mitchell and Kittle? Yes, absolutely. FanDuel cash, Brady, Sony, Gibson, JJ, Allen, Higgins, Moreau, JT. Send it.
Goodness. You could play me at defense at that point.
FanDuel is just like, don't even roster defense at that point. You don't even need it. You're gonna put up 200 points on FanDuel with that lineup. Herbert, Taylor, Michelle, Higgins, Godwin, Ayuk, Moreau, Gibson, Dolphins.
Yeah, that's
it. Now we're talking. Renfro or Ayuk?
Ooh.
Cash, I'm taking Renfro. GBP, I'm taking Ayuk. That's the way that I would do it.
That's probably the way to approach it.
Just because I'm playing Eli Mitchell in cash, right? So, or else I'm gonna have 2-man stacks everywhere, which I went from being okay with 1 to 2-man stacks, then all of a sudden I landed on like if I had Ayuk
we're not saying we want 4 of them.
Yeah, like I'm okay with one of them there, but I'm not saying I want it everywhere. So is it okay to stack Kittle, Ayuk, and Mitchell? It might be a bit much, right? So
that might be a little bit much. You almost have to have Seattle run back at that point.
If you do that, that's the thing, right? Like I have an issue getting a Seattle run back option in there. And if you do that, you need to play Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. And when I make a lineup personally with Jimmy Garoppolo, it makes me nauseous. So I would just go one of Kittle, Ayuk with Eli Mitchell. Herbert, Mixon, Michelle, Jefferson, Renfro, Ayuk, Gibson, Moreau, Giants. Switch from earlier. Feel a lot better about this one. Let's roll. Yeah. Jets, Giants. Oh my God. New York fans in the chat. Here we go. Brady, Gibson, Sanders, Godwin, Kupp, Renfro, Moreau, Michelle, Dolphins.
Is this GPP? You can't play Sanders in cash. That's one thing right off the hop.
If this is cash, you can't play Sanders there. You got to go Eli Mitchell. There.
You'd have to drop one of Godwin or Kupp, whichever you prefer at that point, I think.
So here's what I would do. I would go from Sanders to Eli. If this is cash, if this is GPP, then you need a bit more stacking. But considering there's not much stacking going on here, I would assume this is cash. You have to go from Sanders to Eli Mitchell. And then since you could do one of two things. You could either go down from Brady to Herbert because you already have Tampa Bay exposure in Chris Godwin. Or if that doesn't leave you enough salary to go from Sanders to Mitchell, you go from Kupp to Keenan Allen. So that way you get your Chargers exposure and you keep Brady Godwin. And you shouldn't be worried about not having Kupp at that point because you have Sony Michel. You have a piece of that Rams offense, right? So that would be the strategy that I employ for that cash lineup. We'll go over row. Last one of the day. Herbert, Gibson, Mixon, Allen, Nico, Djax, Kittle, Mitchell, G-Man. Wow. Yeah. I like it. That's really sick. Yeah. That's really nice. All right. So we will go around the table. We'll start with Adam, since that's like the way my screen is orienting. We'll go Adam, Juwan, and then myself. Top quarterback for cash and then top quarterback for GPP.
For cash, it's got to be Brady or Herbert, I think. GPP, I'm gonna feel gross, but GPP, mine might be Minshew. And I'm starting to play with builds with 4K, and it's really fun.
Wow, I like it. Joel, who
For
you
me,
got?
I like Brady for cash. And for GPP, I know this is gross. I'm going to go with Glennon.
I'm all in on Justin Herbert, but all formats this week. So, one word answer: Justin Herbert. Running backs, top cash, top GPP.
Cash, it's Gibson, Michelle, Taylor. I think that's been pretty outlined. GPP, one of Miles Sanders or Devonta Freeman for me.
I like it. I'm going Taylor in all formats. And then like we said, I think the running back, there's like 5 or 6 that are just all formats. There's a very clear funnel of running backs to play this week. So take your pick. We've been talking about them the whole show, right? Between Michelle, Madison, Mixon, Gibson, any of those guys, I'm good with them in all formats.
Yeah. So the cash combination for me is Jonathan Taylor, Sony Michel, and Antonio Gibson. And then for tournaments, I am playing Antonio Gibson, Eli Mitchell, Joe Mixon, Alexander Madison in that order. That is my main guys today. Wide receiver, top cash, top GBP.
Cash is. I'll go GP first. GP for me is going to be D-Jax. Like I said, vintage performance coming in. Top cash is probably Godwin.
Me?
Joel, who you got?
So for me, for cash, I like Call Me Crazy. I like to stick with the same kind of theme. I'm going to go with Godwin. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. Godwin's my guy. You can go with any of the pass catchers there, but that's me, my guy for today. For GPP, I have a few. I think Kenny Golladay is someone we haven't mentioned to keep an eye on, as the Giants said they're looking to get him more involved, especially someone who's playing their quarterback in GPPs. They don't really have many other people to throw to, so I think he can get a lot of targets. I also like, from the other side, if you're going cheap quarterback, you can go Devonta Smith, right? Because if you're going to play Minshew, someone's got to have a big game. And then I actually think, for a GPP, I think Devontae Parker could also come back, like just from the price. If you're looking at someone who needs to blow up at 3,900, he has the capabilities of scoring twice, where a lot of these guys in the 3K range just don't have that sort of upside. So I think Parker can be a sneaky play there as well.
Cash for me is going to be Godwin and Allen, and GBPs have a fairly large pool, but it's still tight enough to be able to make it work. So Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, Keenan Allen. I'm playing Herbert and Allen everywhere, just in case that wasn't clear throughout the last hour and a half, but I'm playing Herbert and Allen everywhere. So Kupp, Keenan, Godwin, Renfro, Ayuk. I do have a bit of Deontay Johnson as well. Justin Jefferson is really high on my list, and it's not a Sunday without mentioning T. Higgins. So T. Higgins. Tight end, top cash, top GBP.
Yeah, I mean, cash, it has to be Foster Moreau. Like, if you're building cash without him, you're probably doing it wrong. Not only because he's so high rostered, but because of what he allows you to do with the rest of your lineup. GPP, I'm going to say – Logan Thomas.
I like that.
I'm surprised. My GBP pick's your boy, Freiermuth. I mean, you said, he's got all the targets. He's got all the targets in the red zone. And let's not forget, the way to attack this Baltimore defense is with the tight end. They are terrible at covering tight ends. They've been terrible all season. So I think this is a spot for him. It's almost good for them to get killed, right? Because they're just going to drop back and throw, and I think he'll get a lot of good luck. So I like Freiermuth a lot, especially for GPP. And yeah, it seems Foster Moreau is going to be hard to get away from in cash, just at the salary.
I won Moreau in cash and all chips in on George Kittle today in tournaments. Absolutely love George Kittle. That's it. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. We appreciate all of you guys. Adam, Joel, was an absolute pleasure. Good luck to you guys this week, and thank you for joining me on the Week 13 NFL show. WinDailySports.com. We will see you guys in Discord. We got just under 40 minutes till lock. So we'll see you there.